If you're between 60 and 70 years old, and sometimes even in your 50s, chances are that right now, plaque and calcium are quietly building up inside your arteries. The problem is that this process is completely silent. You can't feel it, you can't hear it, you can't see it. It builds slowly, year after year, without ever sounding an alarm. And its most dangerous form, plaque that hasn't calcified yet, can rupture suddenly, without warning. That's exactly the kind of heart attack that catches everyone off guard, including the patient. Now, there's a vitamin that costs just a few cents a day, vitamin K2, and recent studies show it may slow calcium buildup in the arteries by nearly a third. On paper, that sounds like a miracle fix. But before you rush out to buy the first bottle you find at the pharmacy or health store, there's a catch. Arterial calcification is a far more complex topic than it appears. There are actually two nearly opposite forms of calcification, and one of them might even be protective, which means a low calcium level isn't necessarily good news, and a high one isn't necessarily bad. I know, it can sound counterintuitive, even confusing, but I'm simply reporting what the research shows, so you can make informed decisions about your own health. In this video, I'll walk you through what vitamin K2 actually does, which type of calcification you're likely developing, and by the end, I'll give you my straight answer. Should you take it or not? What vitamin K2 actually is. Before diving in, let's clear something up. Vitamin K2 is a fat-soluble vitamin. The body uses it to manage calcium, deciding where it should go, and just as importantly, where it shouldn't. A common question is why it's called K2. Regular vitamin K, or K1, is tied to blood clotting. K2 has nothing to do with that. It's entirely about calcium metabolism. The name simply comes from a structural resemblance noticed at the time it was discovered, a historical coincidence rather than a functional link. K2 comes in several forms, but on supplement labels you'll mainly see two: MK4 and MK7. Both work. MK7 tends to be the most studied form, since it stays in the bloodstream longer and works more steadily and continuously. That's why most of the research has focused on it, and it's also the form we'll be discussing today. Still, don't dismiss MK4 too quickly. At the right dose, it remains relevant. You've probably heard the simplified explanation. K2 grabs calcium sitting in artery walls and redirects it to the bones, where it belongs. There's some truth to that. K2 does activate a protein that tells calcium where to settle. But keep this in mind, because it's the key to everything that follows. It's nowhere near as simple as arteries bad, bones good. The study that made headlines. Here's the study behind all the buzz around K2. Vita K2-CAC. Researchers followed 167 people who already had cardiovascular disease, most of them on statins. Half received 360 micrograms of MK7 daily, the other half a placebo, for 2 years. Notice that dosage, 360 micrograms. Compare that to the doses typically found in commercial supplements, often around 100 micrograms, doses I've long considered largely inadequate. Studies that actually show an effect generally use 300 micrograms or more. Here's what happened. In the placebo group, the calcium score rose from 145 to 214. In the K2 group, the increase was slower, from 135 to 184, about 29 to 30% less calcium buildup. That's not something to wave away, it's genuinely significant. But here's what the headlines leave out. In both groups, calcification kept progressing. Nobody's plaque disappeared. This study only measured a number on a scan. It was never designed to count heart attacks, strokes, or deaths prevented. So the honest headline isn't "a vitamin reversed heart disease," it's "a vitamin slowed the progression of one number on an imaging scan." But to know whether slowing that number is good news or bad news, You first need to understand what that calcium is actually doing inside the artery wall. And this is exactly where almost everyone gets it wrong, because we talk about calcification as if it were a single thing. It isn't, and I'm sorry to burst that bubble, but it's essential information for taking care of your health with full understanding. Two types of calcification, nearly opposite. There are two types of calcification, and they work in almost opposite ways. The first type is small, scattered calcium deposits, sitting inside young, unstable, inflamed plaque. These deposits create points of stress exactly where the wall is thinnest, increasing the risk that the cap will crack and rupture. This is clearly the dangerous type. The second type is a large, dense, compact calcium deposit, comparable to solid scar tissue over a wound that has already healed. This type of calcification generally reflects an artery that has sealed off an old injury, stabilizing and neutralizing it. In other words, calcium itself isn't the enemy, the inflammation hiding beneath it is. A high, dense calcium score can actually be a sign that the worst has already passed. So never assume that a higher calcium score automatically means a worse situation. Often it means the exact opposite, that the body has already done the work of cleaning up and bringing inflammation under control. What determines which type of calcification you develop? The real question is, what determines which type of calcification you end up with? And the answer comes down to one word: lifestyle. We keep saying it, supplements and medications can help, but lifestyle remains factor number one, by far. The unstable, dangerous kind of calcification, small, scattered spots, develops in people following a nutrient-poor diet dominated by processed carbohydrates with little physical activity. That inflammatory environment is exactly what allows soft plaque to thrive and form these high-risk deposits. The dense protective kind shows up in men and women doing the opposite, cutting back on processed carbs, eating enough protein, lifting weights and staying active, sleeping well. By calming the whole system down, existing plaque can stabilize, harden, and seal itself off from the rest of the wall. So, a high calcium score isn't automatically bad news. In someone living a healthy lifestyle, it can simply mean their body has already locked down an old injury. The score counts the scars, but it can't tell you which wounds are still open. And that's exactly where the problem lies. This topic goes far beyond a number on a lab report. The people watching this often have others depending on them: a spouse, grandchildren, a community, a business, a contribution they make to those around them. So it's worth getting this right, instead of settling for a scan that only tells half the story. Where vitamin K2 actually fits in. Here's the good news. Vitamin K2 can genuinely help heal plaque, just not only in the way the simplified pitch describes. Plaque doesn't heal only by hardening, it also heals by becoming quieter. When inflammation drops, the cap covering the plaque thickens, and the smooth muscle cells in the wall lay down collagen to reinforce it. It's a bit like reinforcing a weak wall with new studs. That's the body making the plaque far less likely to rupture, without necessarily adding a single extra gram of calcium. This is where K2 truly comes in. Yes, it helps direct calcium deposits, but the more interesting point is that its real mechanism of action is metabolic. K2 appears to improve insulin sensitivity. So no, K2 doesn't magically pull calcium out of your arteries and drop it into your bones. That's simply not what's physiologically happening. What it does is act upstream on insulin resistance, calming the metabolic fire that drives the very inflammation responsible for making plaque unstable in the first place. That's exactly why it's used as a supplement that supports the foundation, never as the foundation itself, because it simply can't play that role. The real foundation is the broader work that transforms the whole system: nutrition, movement, exercise, sleep, stress management, overall metabolic health. My straight answer. So here's my direct answer. Should you take vitamin K2? For most men and women looking to protect their arterial health, yes, I recommend it. And I'll say it again, forget the 100 or 200 microgram doses found on most bottles on the shelf. Aim for 300 to 400 micrograms a day instead. But I recommend it as a complement to the real underlying work, never as a shortcut, and certainly never with the sole goal of lowering a number on an imaging report. Because a lower calcium score doesn't automatically mean lower risk. Often, it's the opposite. Once a calcium score exists, it naturally tends to rise as previously undetected soft plaque calcifies over time. This is an extremely common scenario. Someone gets a first scan, gets scared, gets motivated, dramatically overhauls their lifestyle, significantly improves their metabolic health, then gets a second scan, hoping to see the number drop. And what usually happens? The score goes up. Not because things are getting worse, but because K2 and, above all, improved lifestyle have allowed the body to start stabilizing those old soft plaques, a process that, by its very nature, raises the calcium score. So if you improve your lifestyle, lose weight, and optimize your metabolic health, don't assume your score will automatically drop. It sometimes does, but rarely. More often it keeps climbing. Never let a single number convince you the job is done. What the calcium score can't show you. There's one last essential point. None of what I've just described, inflammation, soft plaque, the thickness of the protective cap, shows up on a standard calcium score. That type of scan only detects calcium that has already hardened. It's blind to everything else. It can't see soft plaque or how unstable it is. To get the full picture, you need other tests. A CIMT, which directly measures the thickness of the artery wall, and a coronary CT angiogram read with artificial intelligence, which allows for a precise look at what's actually inside the arteries. We don't guess at this, we measure it. We know what dangerous plaque looks like, and we know how to help you get your arteries back to a healthy state. There's one final factor, arguably the most important one, that ultimately determines whether K2 or any other intervention will actually help you. And no scan by itself can ever reveal it. That's exactly why two people can have the identical calcium score and walk away with completely different health trajectories. It's this factor that should shape what you do starting tomorrow morning. If you're staring at a number on a medical report, wondering what it really means for you, that's exactly the kind of question we deal with every day. Feel free to reach out to discuss your care plan, or click the link in the description to book time with our team. We can go over whether our approach is the right fit for you, and if you join us, figure out which tests best match your profile and history. And if this kind of straight talk is what you're looking for, go ahead and subscribe. If you want to understand how we detect that hidden soft plaque, the kind a calcium score never picks up, check out the next video on the tests that measure it directly. To wrap up, getting older is never easy. I know that from experience, having just turned 69. But everything becomes simpler, healthier, and far more enjoyable when you take care of your arteries in time.